In this video, you will learn these 20 things to do after installing Pop! OS 22.04. Most of these things are must do after any Pop! OS installation. Let's get started. Update recovery partition. A recovery partition is a very handy tool provided by Pop! OS. Basically, it is just a copy of your installation media, which you can use to repair or reinstall your system, but you don't need to have a separate USB stick. You can just have this recovery partition on your computer. So to update recovery partition, you need to go to the settings, then scroll down and find OS update and recovery. Click on it. You will need to wait a few seconds, and after that you may see that your recovery partition has some updates available. So just click on it and update it. It will take quite some time to download all the information for this recovery partition. After the update is done, you will see that you have the most current version of the recovery partition, and if anything happens to your system, you can boot from this recovery partition. To do that, you just need to restart your system and hold space during the boot process, and then you will enter this menu where you can choose Pop! OS recovery mode. If you boot from it, it will be exactly the same as a live session from a USB drive. And then you can proceed with refreshing your installed system, which is basically the same as reinstalling it. Besides refreshing or reinstallation of your system, you can also do some smaller repair of your system. I'm not going to show you how to do that, everything is very well described here in this article provided by System76. I will link for it in the description, so you can see how you can do different kind of repairs here. So after your recovery partition is updated, you are safe to proceed to the next thing to do after installing Pop! OS 22.04. Switch to the hybrid graphics. One of the strongest sides of Pop! OS is its hardware support, and in particular graphic card support. If you use hybrid graphics, for example you have integrated Intel graphics and discrete NVIDIA graphics, you can use these graphics separately. For example, you can choose just integrated graphics, or you can choose the NVIDIA graphics. But Pop! OS also provides an option to use a hybrid graphics. In most of the cases you will use integrated graphics, but when there is a requirement for higher graphic performance, your system will automatically switch to the NVIDIA graphic card. This is a very useful feature. And to enable it, you just need to go to the tray, click on the battery icon, and then select hybrid graphics. As you can see, you need to restart your system to apply these changes. And after the restart, your Pop! OS will intelligently switch between integrated and dedicated graphic cards depending on what is required from your system. Update firmware. If you are running Pop! OS on the System76 hardware, you will also benefit from having the latest firmware on your system. Firmware updates provide fixes for different security vulnerabilities and improvement of hardware functionality. So you want to have it the latest. To update it, you go to the settings, scroll down, find the firmware tab, click on it, and if there are any updates available, you will see them right here. Unfortunately, I don't have any hardware by System76, so there is no firmware available on my system. But if you run System76 computer, most likely you will see some updates in that tab. Configure high DPI display. Most likely your Pop! OS will automatically recognize the resolution of your screen and set the correct display settings. But if it doesn't, you can manually fix it. Just go to the settings, find the displays tab, click on it, and here you can enable fractional scaling if you're using high DPI screen, and then you can switch between different scaling modes depending on the resolution of your screen. For example, you can increase it to 150%. Apply, and your screen resolution will change. If the settings don't look nice on your screen, you can just revert to the previous settings, but if everything is alright, you can keep the changes. I'm not using high DPI screen on this computer, so I will revert the changes. Install Synaptic. Synaptic is an old school graphical package manager provided by Debian. I think Synaptic is a nice addition to the Pop! OS shop or the software center, because it lists all the packages available for your system, while the Pop! OS shop provides only some major packages. I will show you what I mean in this video. Let's first install Synaptic. Just go to the Pop!AS shop and search for Synaptic. Install it. After the installation, open it. You will need to provide administrative password to open it. Here it is. As you can see, it's not very fancy looking, but the advantage of this package manager is that it lists all the available packages for your system, including some libraries. You will see it in the next step. Install Codecs and Microsoft Fonts. This is where you can benefit from using Synaptic Package Manager, because to install Codecs and Microsoft Fonts you need to install the package which is called Ubuntu Restricted Extra. You just search for it in Synaptic. Here it is. But if you go to the Pop shop and search for it, it won't be found. You see, it just suggested me some another program. So, as I mentioned, not all the libraries and packages listed here in this Pop shop. Of course, you can use the command line to install it, but I know that many users prefer to have graphical programs for installing packages, and Synaptic provides such an option. You just need to right-click on it, mark for installation. You see, it lists all the packages it's going to install, including some TTF Microsoft Fonts installer. This is exactly what we need. Mark everything for installation and apply. Apply again. You'll be offered to accept Microsoft Fonts license. Next. You can also mark this tick here to automatically close this window after successful installation of all the packages. Synaptic Packager is also very useful because you can see the details of the installation here in a sort of terminal window. Or you can also hide it if you want. So when everything installed successfully, this window is closed. And after that you will be able to play most of the media files on your Pop!AS computer. You can also verify if Microsoft Fonts have been installed successfully. Just open the Office application, for example LibreOffice Writer, and check the list of available fonts. And you will see such classical fonts as okay, there seems to be a bug with installing Microsoft Fonts in Pop!AS 22.04. Microsoft Fonts are supposed to be installed together with Ubuntu Restricted Extra package, but something goes wrong with that package, and there is a bug already reported here, as you can see in Pop!AS. And if you scroll all the discussion here, there are several solutions offered. I have tried all of them, but I can only confirm that this solution with installing the Debian package works. So if you don't get Microsoft Fonts working after installing Ubuntu Restricted Extra, you need to install this Debian package. So just copy this wget command, go to your terminal, Ctrl+Shift+V to paste it, then you need to download it, and after the download you can install it using the apkg command. Again, go to the terminal, Ctrl+Shift+V to paste it, and install. It will download all the fonts and install them. I have already installed them to test it, and everything works fine. If I go to my LibreOffice, go to the fonts, I can already see such classical fonts as Arial, Comic Sans, and in the end of the list I should also have Times New Roman. If you see these fonts, it means Microsoft Fonts are installed successfully in your system. If you don't see them, you need to follow these instructions to install it. I hope this Debian solution will work for it. If it doesn't, you can also go to this issue on GitHub and see if there are any other alternative solutions offered on this web page. Backup your files. In this article on the backup files from System76, they recommend to install Dejadupe program. So, and this is what I also recommend you to do. You can just go to their Pop shop, search for it, and install either Flatpak or Debian version. I personally usually prefer Debian versions, so this is what I'm going to do. Open it, and it is very straightforward to configure because it has very minimal interface with clear explanation of how to create your backup. Just click Create My First Backup, select what you want to backup, what you want to exclude. Then you can define where you want to backup. You can backup to Google Drive, a network server, You can also backup to local storage and choose where you want to backup if you have several hard drives, for example here. I have shown how to use DejaDup Backup in one of my previous videos for Ubuntu. I will leave a link to it in the description. Enable firewall. Also, enabling firewall in Linux system is not an essential thing to do, but it can add extra layer of security on your system, and that's why I recommend you to enable it. As I always say, it's better to be safe than sorry. You can use the command line tool to enable it, but you can also install a graphical program, which is a bit more user-friendly for most new users. So just search for the package which is called GUFW, here it is, and install it. After the installation, open it and just enable it. The default settings to deny incoming and allow outgoing connections is fine for most desktop users. If you want to learn more about how to use Linux Firewall, including how to add different rules here, please watch my video on Linux Firewall. Install ThinLink. This is not an essential thing to do after installing Pop! OS 22.04, but ThinLink is an extremely useful program if you need remote access to your Pop! OS desktop. With ThinLink you can work in your Pop! OS remotely from another Linux computer, macOS, Windows, and even a web browser. ThinLink sponsored this video, but it is a great piece of software that I recommend you to check. Installation takes a few clicks, everything is automatic, including configuring firewall, so you don't need to go and add rules in your firewall program. ThinLink will do it for you. After the installation, you can connect to your Pop! OS using its IP address through a web browser or a ThinLink client if you want optimized performance. ThinLink can be installed in most Linux distros, not only Pop! OS. I have a dedicated video where I show how to use ThinLink in Ubuntu. I will leave a link to it in the description. It is the best program for remote desktop access in my opinion. ThinLink is especially great in server-based infrastructure. Try ThinLink, I believe you will like it. ThinLink is based on open source software and it is free for up to 10 concurrent users. Install GNOME Tweaks. Pop! OS uses GNOME Desktop, so by installing GNOME Tweaks you will have some extra options to configure your Pop! OS desktop. To install it, go to the Software Center, search for Tweaks, here it is, and install it. After the installation, open it. It has a number of useful options to tweak your GNOME desktop. Many of these options are already available in the Pop! OS settings. For example, if you want to disable or enable minimize button and maximize button. These options are available here, and they are also available in the Pop! OS settings. But there is no option to change the location of the buttons. By default they are on the right, but many Linux users may like it on the left, here. So you can easily do it in this GNOME Tweaks program. But I particularly like this GNOME Tweaks application because of its Appearance tab, which gives you an option to install some extra themes in your Pop! OS. It is not available by default in the Pop! OS settings. And I have a dedicated video where I show how to install different themes in Ubuntu which also use GNOME Desktop. Everything is the same here in Pop! OS. I'll leave a link to that video in the description. You can watch it if you want to have extra themes in your Pop! OS. Enable GNOME extensions. GNOME is very extensible and configurable desktop, thanks to its extensions. They are not enabled by default in Pop! OS, but you can easily do that. If you go to extensions.gnome.org, you will see these windows in your Firefox browser. And it will offer you to install the browser extension. You need to do that. Add. Okay, restart the browser after the installation. Go again to this extensions.gnome.org. So now you don't have this warning window anymore. It means the extension in your Firefox works, and you can start installing different extensions right here from the web browser. For example, you can install OpenWeather extension. Just go to its page and click on this on option and install it. And it will appear here at the top. And then you can of course configure it, and you can also move it in this panel. If you don't like this extension, you can also disable it right from here. This is very useful. In addition to this, there is also an extension app. Here it is. So you can see the list of all the installed extensions on your Pop! OS. A number of them are pre-installed and provided by System76, but here is manually installed extension which is called OpenBlazer. They have just installed it. If you don't want to have it on your system completely, you can also remove it. With enormous amount of extensions available at the website extensions.gnome.org, you will be able to change your Pop! OS desktop to anything you want. Just be careful and don't turn your Pop! OS desktop into a Christmas tree. Install Google Chrome. I am a big fan of Firefox and I use Google Chrome only as my additional browser. If you also want to use it as additional browser or as your main browser, you can easily install it in your Pop! OS. You can just go to the Pop shop, search for Google Chrome, here it is, and then you can install the current stable version, or if you want to have the development version, you can also install the unstable version. But I believe for most users, installing just the standard Google Chrome version will work fine. Click install, and after the installation, Google Chrome will be available from the menu. You can make it your default browser if you want to do that, and you can also send user statistics to Google, but I'm not going to do that. And here it is. Enable Netflix support and other useful settings of Firefox. However, if you are a fan of Firefox as I am, you may want to do some additional settings to your Firefox browser. For that you need to go to the settings, and here the first thing I usually enable is to open previous windows and tabs. So it remembers the state at which I close it and open it again. This is very useful feature. You can also switch between different themes here if you want, but I usually scroll down here and enable DRM support. This is essential if you want to play Netflix video in your Pop! OS using Firefox browser, for example. And the third thing I change in my Firefox right after the installation is I go to the search tab here and I switch from the default search navigation bar to a separate web URL address and a search field. This is much more useful in my opinion, because search field works a little bit different, because if you want to Google email address, it works very well here, but it will not work here. It will open your email client by default if you enter email address here. Set automatic date and time. By default, Pop! OS uses the time set on your computer, which may not be the most accurate one. So you can make your Pop! OS to sync time with the internet. This way your time will be more precise. To do that, go to the settings, scroll to the date and time tab, and enable automatic date and time. So now your time is very accurate. Activate night light. Night light reduces the amount of blue light on your screen in the evening at night, which is better for your eyes, and it also helps you to fall asleep easier. To activate it, you just need to go to the settings, scroll to the display tab, and here at the top you will find night light tab. Click on it and enable. You can also adjust the temperature of the screen if you want, and you can also set the custom schedule, but I think the default settings are fine for most users. Configure dock. There are a few things you can do to improve the behavior and look of your dock here. I will show you what I usually do for my dock. For that you need to go to the settings, then go to the desktop tab, dock tab, and look for these options and change what you want. For example, what I don't like in this dock behavior is that if I click on the open window, like this settings window, I click on it and it doesn't minimize. This is very annoying behavior. I complained about it a lot in my Ubuntu reviews, but Pop! OS is fantastic because here you can define what behavior you want on the icon click in your dock. And you can switch from this option, which is the default, to minimize. So now after I apply this option, if I click on the settings icon, it minimizes. I click again, it maximizes. I don't know, maybe it's me, but I just really like this behavior. It's so intuitive to me. This is one thing which I usually change. Also, I like to use the intelligent hide, because by default, for example, you see the dock is always visible when you maximize a window. But if you choose intelligently hide and you maximize a window, it hides. You minimize your window and you can see it. Very useful behavior. You can also change its size if you want, but I think the default size is fine. And also not everyone may like dock at the bottom. Personally, I think it looks much better when it is on the left, so I usually also switch to the left position of the dock. There are a few more things you can do to your dock. For example, by default it includes show applications button, show desktop button and a launcher here. But the same options are available here. Workspaces is the same as this button, and applications, as you can see, is the same as this button. So I usually remove them from favorites. However, it's nice to have this launcher here for quick launch of different apps. You can also call it by pressing the super key. So if you want, you can remove it as well. This way your dock stays a bit cleaner, and you can add more favorite applications. For example, if Google Chrome is your favorite app, you can right click on it here in the application menu and select Pin to Dash, and it will appear in your dock. And if you don't like it, you can remove it from here. This way you can add many different apps to your dock. And I hope these small tweaks to your dock will improve your productivity and ergonomic of your Pop! OS desktop. Install GUVC View. This is a program which provides you access to your web camera. Unfortunately, Pop! OS doesn't have any webcam app pre-installed by default. I know that many people use Cheese app, which is also very nice, but I think GUVC View is much better one. So to install it, you just need to go to their Pop! Shop and search for GUVC View. Yeah, the name is a little bit complicated. Install it. And after the installation, open it from the menu, and you will be able to test if your camera works. And you can also use this app for various things such as recording video, taking pictures, and many more things. Check it out, it's a fantastic app, although it looks a little bit outdated. Disable Bluetooth. By default, Pop! OS has Bluetooth enabled, and it drains your battery because it constantly searches for devices nearby. If you are not using your Bluetooth devices all the time you are using your computer, I recommend you to disable it. This way you will save a little bit of your battery. Show battery percentage. By default in Pop! OS, and I think most of the GNOME desktops distros, there is no battery percentage in the top menu, which is fine if you like minimal desktop, but I like the precision, so I prefer to have exact number in the top panel to see how much battery life I have. To enable that, you need to go to the settings, power, and here is a button which you can click to activate show battery percentage. Now you know exactly how much battery life is left on your computer. Install Ubuntu Cleaner. And the last thing I recommend to do after installing Pop! OS 22.04 is to install app which allows you to keep your Pop! OS clean. It is designed for Ubuntu, but Pop! OS is based on Ubuntu, so it should work in Pop! OS very well. To install it, you need to add additional repository. Here it is. Click enter, enter your password, enter again to edit. Then you need to update the cache of your system and install it by running the command sudo apt install Ubuntu Cleaner. After the installation, open it from the menu. Here it is. My system is still pretty clean, so there is no much to clean, but you can clean, for example, Firefox cache here. You can also clean thumbnails if you have many different images on your system, and some other things, for example, such as old kernel, package configs, unneeded packages, and apt cache. Select what you want to clean and click this clean button. Enter your password if you want to clean some system files. And after that, everything will be cool and your system will be clean, as says the message on this screen. I hope you like these 20 things to do after installing Pop! OS and they were useful. If there is anything else you would like to add to this list, please leave a comment below. And don't forget to check out ThinLink. The video is available on your screen right now, just click on it. Thank you for watching.